Hi, my name's Bill. I'm 33. I like curvy girls. I have a dog. Her name is Precious. She's my world. My hobbies include midnight strolls, collecting insects, kind of nerdy, I know, but it's what I'm into. Making my own clothing and dancing when nobody's looking. Dry skin is a deal breaker. Love Bath and Body Works for the sole reason that their lotion comes in a basket. And finally, I date me.
We asked ChatGPT to write us a script that would land us on the front page of the Hub.
Help me, step bro.
Did someone say they needed their pipes cleaned?
Ooh, I've seen this before. Looks like you could use a nurse.
Relax, we're just gonna get you all oiled up.
How about you do my fun first?
Okay, I like how you think.
Did someone order a pizza with extra meat?
But pizza man's stepdad, what if mom finds out?
Oh, mom already knows. And as a MILF, I'm very into it.
Don't ask me why, but the video cut me off. I don't know where it stopped. I told you guys the other day I was going to tell you a story. It's somebody I met in passing. One second, I heard weird sounds, dude. Probably a tree branch fell on my house, but you never know. Maybe I'll splice this in and I'll do it a different way. First, I'm going to knock this out again. I left a shit ton of videos on fucking TikTok last night. If you add them up, roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 500, maybe 56 people allegedly saw this. I shouldn't have to post that many videos to get so few people. And most likely a bunch of these were bots. When you click on these, it rarely shows me humans anymore. Maybe all those people have the private option set up. Maybe they don't. When I first started using TikTok, it was more people than private shit. Just saying. Patterns. It stinks of shit is what I'm getting at. Especially based on what takes place on TikTok. People are supposedly looking for answers. I could tell them, hey, go here, and there are fucking answers. Just because I didn't leave a hyperlink, I didn't, put my YouTube intentionally on my TikTok this time. Maybe people don't go to the account. That's possible too. Just the same. Last night, the last video was uploaded 12 hours ago, only 2 views. Most likely that might be, it might be one person and myself, and or I viewed the video twice. That's not very good when I supposedly have 300 plus people following this account. That doesn't track. It does stink of the fact that freedom of speech doesn't exist, because censorship does exist, and in case you're a fucking retard, all censorship is patently fascist. It is fascism, by definition. But you would have to think about that. And I've been having it's not a discussion, it's a moron whining at me, telling me that I might be fascist now. Because he's trying to justify the bullshit that he shopped around on the DARPA internet, because he doesn't fucking understand things, because he's never looked into it. He's never thought about it. He's repeating what people have been trained to repeat. Use your brain. You can figure out what I said, and it does hold water. It makes fucking sense if you think about it. The post in question is donkey jizz and bubblegum. And I'm shocked, supposedly 25 people did see that. That's still not a staggering number, and it should still be a hell of a lot more if I'm connected to the DARPA internet, connected to 5G, and all the shit that I complain about. But I am censored, and you can make your assumptions. You can have your assumptions about this, and a lot of people will have assumptions about this, is how I'm trying to spit it out. You can go to the accounts that I moderate, and I have documented numerous instances of me being fucking censored. And these are things that people don't experience, typically speaking. Or, if you have experienced one of the things that, has set me back in terms of fascist censorship on the DARPA internet, which shouldn't exist in the first place. You've probably experienced it once, maybe twice. These things happen to me every single day, multiple times across all accounts. Does that happen to you? Because I highly doubt it. But then again, this speaks to, are you doing the right thing? I highly doubt it, because if you were, you would also be experiencing what I'm complaining about. But are you? I highly doubt it. So I was at a bus stop. This is a story that I told you guys I would probably tell you. I was at a bus stop. There was a guy there that I've never seen before. Who knows? A lot of people, there's a lot of foot traffic, especially these days through Portland, Oregon, ever since the anonymous stuff blew up, ever since the Black Lives Matter shit was spoon-fed to people, etc., etc., etc. Keep in mind, I'm not marginalizing or downplaying human life, in case you're a fucking retard. I'm not. If you do look into that campaign in particular, it is funded and was funded by the Rockefeller Trust. If you consider the families that took part in it, what did they do? They turned it into a crowdsourcing. They made money on that, and they blew that money. A lot of them are bankrupt. They squandered that shit. Not on fucking charities and what have you, not what they told you it was for, but on fucking luxuries, material goods. Which speaks to the fact that what people were telling you was one thing, what they were doing was another. Just one example. But you don't hear that come up because you don't speak against Black Lives Matter. That's not cool, bro. Back to point. So there's a guy at a bus stop. Eventually started interacting because he mentioned the skateboard. So I was like, all right, I'll talk to you for a minute. So we started talking. And then he started telling me strange shit. And the short version of this is he was a weird dude. He was a really weird dude. He locked eyes with me and essentially started talking about how if I, hypothetically speaking, he was referring to me. He said, well, if you got online and you started speaking out of turn, so to speak, and I'm paraphrasing, mind you. Essentially, he started alluding to if I was doing what I'm doing currently online, tactics would be deployed. The people who are pulling the strings of the internet would try to do exactly what I've been experiencing. They would try to deter me. And they would do so in a number of different ways. And it was pretty funny. I just let him keep going. I didn't interrupt. I was like, all right, we've never met before. Keep going. Why are you telling me this? And eventually what it boiled down to, he said, they're going to try this. And if that doesn't work, they're going to try something else kind of like that and or worse. And if that doesn't fucking work, they're going to try something else. And it's just going to keep getting grimmer and grimmer. And he said, the reason that they're doing this, he said, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make you reach a point where you break, like breaking a horse. And if this doesn't happen, again, it's only going to get worse and you're going to experience these things. And he said, most likely outside of the internet eventually, if they can't achieve this goal. Again, I don't interrupt him. I'm just having a listen. And he said, this is definitely going to happen to someone like you, if you were to do something like this. So it would be in your best interest not to do something like that. Especially if they can't break you with the initial, tactics that they use. And then there was a silence. A long silence. And he's like, all right, well, yeah, so it's good meeting you. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, good meeting you too. The bus still didn't arrive. And then we just stood there in silence. If I end up posting this, it should be censored accordingly. I mean, for the most part. Maybe I'll just zoom in on the caption. This is a girl cosplaying as a guy who recently went to the state of Oregon, and Oregon signed off on this and produced an ID that states that this girl is a guy. which is fraud the last time I checked and makes absolutely no sense because it doesn't relate to the biological markers or what reflects reality. Okay, so the story behind this, the person in question, this gal, she's been sick. She went back to work. She was wearing, something over the holes that she breathes with, which inhibits oxygen and is technically not healthy in any form or way and would be counterproductive to healing, which is what I thought was the point. But either way, she went back to work, but left early, and she's mad because, as the caption reads, also, when I'm feeling myself and getting quote-unquote man and quote-unquote sir'd at work, that some shit happens and I gotta leave. So now her ID says that she's a guy or a man, which would also denote a sir, which is absolutely incorrect, but just the same. So when people tell her this, it offends her. And to highlight that, that's another reason why she left work today. I mean, what is this, ass backwards and upside down world? I mean, this shit doesn't make any fucking sense. The other thing I was complaining about the other day, this gal in particular, she's heterosexual. She likes dudes. But she considers herself gay because she's pretending to be a guy. Which is counterproductive to everything that, and I've said this before, I mean, I live in Portland, Oregon, where they renamed a street Harvey Milk. And I do like some of the things that Harvey Milk got up to. It's been weaponized, it's been hijacked, it's been absolutely fucking corrupted by the people, not all of them, but the vast majority who align themselves, with the alphabet community. Because they will quite literally repeat fucking anything. If social media or the news or if it's widely circulated and well-financed. Fucking morons will repeat it. They will fall into line and they'll do exactly what they were instructed to do and await further instructions because they are not bright. You and I are surrounded by people who are incapable of fucking abstract thought. They don't have a clue what's going on. This is also why attention spans are dwindling. By design, not coincidence. That's why 60-second videos are shit out that have no context whatsoever. And people love that shit. They repeat that shit. They repost that shit. Because it's dumbing people down. Say you tried to have a conversation with somebody in, these communities who have bought into social engineering campaigns. Within less than 60 seconds, their mind is going to wander, is my point. They're not going to be able to grasp anything that you could possibly convey to them. They're not going to understand. They've been trained to just rattle off that they're offended by everything and anything you could possibly think of, unless you're smiling and blowing rainbows up their ass and telling them that they're doing a good job. This is why I constantly talk about retarded dumpster babies. It's a bad analogy. It's absolutely ugly. But it does paint a really ugly picture because that's who you and I are surrounded by. They could change this, mind you. They could change this. In this case, I'm using this gal as an example, and it cuts deep. It makes me sad. It really makes me fucking sad deep down because she chose this fucking adventure. She fucking chose this adventure. So now that she's a big pharma slave because she signed up for that garbage, that has permanently altered her chemistry. That's never going to go away. That's part of her now. It's unnatural. This unnatural injection, this unnatural addition to her, chemistry is a part of her now. These things break my fucking heart because so many goddamn people out there have bought into this. And I know some of them, which is even worse. It's like anything. If you frown on it and you know somebody in close proximity, it's going to resonate with you even more, is my point. That's part of it. There's a gal I used to date. She has a daughter. I haven't seen them online and what have you because I cut ties with the mother. I tell the mother I don't want you in my life at all. It's not a child that I created or anything like that, just so you guys know. But she burnt bridges with everybody, and I was warned, and they were right, and it is what it is. You know how targeted ads will pop up? Well, her profile popped up with the daughter, so to speak. And I was like, all right, I'll look at this for a second, see how they're doing. And apparently she bought into allowing her daughter to cosplay as a guy. So this little girl that I hung out with, in early adolescence has been allowed to and or trained to buy into this absolute nonsense. It's like calling the sky the earth and the earth the sky. It's like telling you that water isn't wet. It's like pretending that there's no difference between night and day. I mean, if you were raising a child, would you teach them that fire isn't hot and it will not burn you? That's how important it is to appreciate what I'm driving at. But we are surrounded by people who, I would not be mistaken, down the line would tell you and teach their children that fire is not hot and it will not burn you. Because we got this. Polarizing positive vibes only. We can't lose. And all that other fucking garbage, even though that sounded more like Parker Lewis. If some of you get the reference. What the fuck do I know? This shit disgusts me. This is for every brain-dead, hapless dipshit out there who's supposedly looking for answers, but doesn't understand. There's a difference between repeating things, memorizing shit and repeating it, and understanding it. There's a difference between reacting and research. There's a stark difference between fucking entertainment, which is what you're spoon-fed on the DARPA internet, and what? And most of you probably couldn't answer that question because most of you have not been keeping up with what I've been up to long term. If you're new here, and you're just superficially popping into accounts because that's how most people, function these days, I expect you to do something else. I expect you to use your fucking brain and put in the time. If you're not doing that, in most accounts, I'll fucking kick you out if I can. Because that's how it fucking works. That's how it should work. Because you're useless to me and everybody else, including yourself, and you don't realize it. I can teach you things you're not supposed to know, but what the fuck do I know? I've only been trying to help people long term. By the way, I'm watching Pelican Brief again. It's not the finest movie ever, and there's some agendas in there. But she does, I'm talking about Julia Roberts, the Zionist puppet. She does pay with cash when she's trying to avoid being picked up on, in terms of the surveillance state. Why do you think digital currency is in place? Why do you think that's being, spoon-fed to idiots? You won't be able to hide if you buy something. So, think about 1991, and appreciate that Pelican Brief came out in 1993. Julia Roberts is having a conversation with the Home Alone dad. That's probably how you know him. And she can't see what he's up to. She's just talking to him. So, flash forward to present day and what you and I would probably consider, the future. Say you're on the lam. Say you're running from people. And say you got a phone conversation from somebody you know, and they told you, hey, okay, I'm going to help you out. I just need you to meet me at this location. Yeah? Sounds like a good bet, right? Green light. You should probably do it, especially if you're down and out and you need help. And you're desperate, which means you'd probably bite the hook. I want you to appreciate the fact that people are supporting AI and other things along those lines. I want you to think about 1991, in particular Terminator 2. I want you to think about when the two robots talked to each other on the fucking phone. I want you to think about that game of cat and mouse. I want you to think about the fact that audio can be manipulated. If you can't see the other person on the other side of the phone, etc., you don't know who you're talking to necessarily anymore. This is how far gone things are and how bad they're gonna get. Better than that, you could do a video chat, Skype, or these days, all the retards have been trained to call it Zoom chatting or Zooming or whatever the fuck. Yeah? Now the imagery that you see might not be the person you think you're talking to. That's why shit like that shouldn't exist. That's why shit like that would not exist if you and I were surrounded by fucking adults who did the right thing. But that shit does exist. Which means you and I are surrounded by absolute morons. Note that 10,000 people have clicked the heart sigil on here. Who knows how many have circulated this? And if this was remotely true, I would be able to leave comments on here. This is also telling of the fact that freedom of speech does not exist. I'm not following this account. If I have to see it, I should be able to leave my 2 cents on here. That's how it should work. But that's not how it works. Here's another bit. If you look at the very top, whoever this is, Androman6, is a fucking retard. And a lot of other retards click the heart sigil. Take a screenshot, read the words. It's absolutely absurd. What the fuck are you and I? Think about it. We are fucking people. It makes sense. Have you ever heard "we the people"? It cut me off. As I was saying, if you look closely, it says the people. What the fuck are we? And have you ever heard of "we the people"? Think about it. What the fuck should we say? How should we phrase this for the fucking retards out there? Doesn't need to be rephrased is the point. And I can't zoom in and out like I want. That's why it looked like shit. Either way. These are things that are being circulated on the DARPA internet because you and I are being manipulated and we are surrounded by fucking retards. Here's 2 things from the comment section of Raw Maraby. The next one is the only bad word that I've ever seen associated with him. Keep in mind, I don't have that book. I have not verified it. Somebody left it in the comment section, so it's still hearsay. If it is in fact true, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It doesn't reflect in a good way. I try not to say negative and positive is what I'm struggling with, because it's been weaponized. Yeah, it doesn't look favorably on Raw Maraby. The fact that he put that in the book. Here, this is what I'm talking about. You're going to have to read this because I can't say it online. Not on YouTube, not on TikTok. And possibly not on Facebook. And, well, then again, I don't leave stuff on there. But Lifelog 2.0, Instagram. You never know. Take a screenshot. I'm going to slide over to the other one. Because the other one's a little bit more socially digestible. This kid just said, "Do you ship to Canada?" And I contacted him and told him you might not have heard a response because his comment was at the bottom of the stack and it was hidden. That should not be a tactic. The algorithm, that shouldn't be written into the algorithm is what I'm getting at. No comments should be hidden. There shouldn't be a substack. There shouldn't be a subcategory. There shouldn't be extra steps. None of that shit. All of that has to do with normalizing aspects of censorship. You should be able to see everything plainly, clearly, cleanly, however else I should put it, and it should be fucking efficient. You shouldn't have to jump through extra hoops. You shouldn't have to go to other pages and click on little filters. It should all be right there in one lump sum. But what the fuck do I know? Any censorship means freedom of speech doesn't exist, which is why I contacted this kid. I understood that it's a loaded issue in terms of what I asked him about. Asked him essentially, why did you crop out what you see right there? Yeah? Because it says Nazis. And then we proceeded to go back and forth, and they just whined at me about a bunch of fucking horseshit they've been spoon-fed. So they wrote me again and they told me, "Lots of love. Do you think I don't understand what you're saying? Because I do." So I responded, and this is the last time I think I'm going to contact them or respond. I said, if you had a clue what you were talking about, you wouldn't have reacted in the first place. Best of all, you wouldn't have left what you left on the DARPA internet. You're a moron. In typical fashion, instead of thinking for himself, he tried to accuse me, essentially in a roundabout way, of being a fascist. Because he's a Muppet. Because he's a fucking Muppet. Who can't process information. He can regurgitate what he's been spoon-fed. But he can't pick apart things and use his brain. Same difference in that case. And these are just some of the wildly ridiculous comments, or I should say statements that he made, and questions that he asked. Just fucking ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. But you and I are surrounded by people like this that just don't get it. And they're not about to. And things are only getting worse. And kids like this, I mean, they're breeding and adopting, for fuck's sake. Which means they're going to shit out bargain bin versions of themselves that are going to be dumber than this. I got to remember to crop out my email, but just the same. I have numerous email accounts because I have to moderate. Well, I've been moderating numerous accounts trying to get through to you guys and help you guys. Fucking Bill Murray, he sent me a lot of emails yesterday to every single account that I fucking moderate. And obviously it wasn't Bill Murray, because Bill Murray is a Zionist puppet who works for these bastards. And if I'm not mistaken, this was one of the, I'm trying to think of how I worded it, because I wrote Bill Murray back, not on here, mind you, on a Insta-spam post on Instagram. And I told him something along the lines of, no thank you, Bill Murray. You know, which is me paying homage to Coffee and Cigarettes, which is not a very good movie, but I do enjoy that scene a bit. It's probably the only enjoyable scene in the entire goddamn movie. Apart from maybe Iggy Pop and Tom Waits. Back to point. So I said, no thank you, Bill Murray. I'm not interested in your DARPA engineering project to gauge people's reaction times. That's me paraphrasing it. But if I'm not mistaken, that's what our masters are up to. You know, survey says, and all the fucking morons chime in and do as they've been instructed, instead of questioning, why was this rolled out? You think it's just a fun little game we're all playing? Do you think this is beneficial to you and I? And this is when morons would chime in, absolute fucking retards. It's just Bill Murray. It's just a movie. It's just publicity for a movie. It's a marketing campaign, bro. It's not that deep. Or you just get, if I had a lot of traction, there would be numerous comments in there and they would all read the same thing. Nice try, Diddy. Had to respond to a question today. And I'll probably jump into that account and show you exactly what I'm talking about. In other words, if you're a fair weather viewer and you're just popping in, doing whatever the fuck it is that you do, I'm probably going to kick you out of most accounts. Especially if you're haunting numerous ones looking for fucking answers, but you're not willing to put in the time. Do think about Meta, why that's been shopped around, but more importantly, think about the USDA sigil on quote-unquote organics. It's no different from what I'm showing you right here. Understand, when I meet new people online, it usually takes a day before I want to kick them to the fucking curb. Because you and I were indoctrinated into the same system and people have yet to pull their heads out of their asshole. So 13 days ago, this guy followed an account. Yeah? Bottommost video. I ask a question in this fucking video. But what do I get out of this guy? He says, where's the old videos? YouTube take them down, or are they located in Shorts playlist? He did not answer the fucking question, but he asked me to do things for him. He followed a couple of my accounts, to say the very least. So today I wrote him, after he sent me another fucking question. I wrote him back and said, maybe it should say asked. You ask me for things. No, I guess that does work. I'm jumping around. You ask me for things here in the comment section. Maybe, no, I'm wrong. Past tense. I fucked that up. But you didn't answer the question I posed in the video. Same thing I already said, but I did not contact him that day because I thought I'd try something else. I thought I'd give him a little bit of time so he could acclimate himself to what kind of an asshole I am in terms of boundaries and expectations. 13 days later, he writes me this because I kicked him out of the Obsidian Monarch channel on Instagram. He says, is your mystery school channel still up on YouTube? Because I can't seem to find shit for the channel when I search it. And I'm not surprised considering the censorship. And he didn't fucking punctuate this either way. I said, oh, and there's more. You got to click see more. Because this is a really long comment. Didn't see a record of you going through what was on there, so I removed you. And that's a horrible way to put it, but that's how I worded it, apparently. That's how it works. That's also not my mystery school account. Because this shit is donkey jizz and fucking bubblegum. But what the fuck do I know? This block of videos you see right here, keep in mind there's more. There's another one on the Keianh, and then it's reversed. You know, the Keianh, and then HNAIEK account that I responded. I was trying to respond to somebody I've known for a very long time, and I've been complaining about it. But it has to do with communism. These aren't far down on the stack, so if you know somebody who's a fucking retard, you should try to get them to watch these. Is this propaganda? Have you ever wondered? I think that's another one. Are you a mug is definitely one of those. Are you one of them? If I'm not mistaken, is one of those. People aren't thinking about this shit, but they are circulating the propaganda is my point. And I'm trying to remember if this is the video you're looking for. I don't remember the title. I put it on the other video, but you could watch it. You could figure it out if you're fucking invested, but most people don't see this shit. Why? Because I am censored and I can teach you things you're not supposed to know, and most people have not pulled their heads out of their fucking asshole. And that much would be apparent if you looked around and you thought about it. It's been real fun, guys and gals. For all of the lazy goddamn pieces of shit out there. The one that says, "Comrade, welcome to Think Station," is the video that I'm going to go on to reference. And it's not that far down. You could find it. I'm sure that was so daunting. And I'm clicking on it. It's on this account.
In the future, products have become services. Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say, our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances. It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you consider a product has now become a service. We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all the things we need in our daily lives. One by one, all these things became free, so it ended up not making sense for us to own much. First, communication became digitized and free to everyone. Then, when clean energy became free, things started to move quickly. Transportation dropped dramatically in price. It made no sense for us to own cars anymore, because we could call a driverless vehicle or a flying car for longer journeys within minutes. We started transporting ourselves in a much more organised and coordinated way when public transport became easier. Ida Marguerite Meyer Walken. Why you want to own your cell phone? You want the function. You want the service, right? Why own a cell phone if you can just lease it? Ida Marguerite Meyer Walken. She doesn't stop there. She lists your fridge and an array of appliances. Why not go into a business model where the company owns it? Ida Marguerite Meyer Walken. Because that would mean the corporation has absolute control over functional parts of my day-to-day. This is where I'm supposed to be nodding in agreement with the rest of the idiots slapping this nonsense up. In our city, we don't pay any rent, because someone else is using our free space whenever we don't need it. My living room is used for business meetings when I'm not there. Ida Marguerite Meyer Walken. I rarely pop jokes. I don't know about you, but I don't want a stranger farting on my couch while I'm off doing whatever it is in this Orwellian slave state. In this future, Skynet knows your taste better than you do, so a signature-specific algorithm chooses items you need for you, instead of you actively making decisions while shopping. Those who lost their way decided it was all too much. All this technology, those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over. Ida Marguerite Meyer Walken. Those who lost their way left the megacities, aka smart cities, to live in 19th century villages, and the collective considers to have new value in society. But you have to ask yourself, does the collective have any value whatsoever? Don't fool yourself. We are currently working towards a cashless society where passwords will be biometric signature. Pay particular attention to the following quote. Once in a while I get annoyed about the fact that I have no real privacy, nowhere I can go and not be registered. I know that, somewhere, everything I do, think, and dream of is recorded. I just hope that nobody will use it against me. Ida Marguerite Meyer Walken. Dear reader, you need to review that last quote once more. Everything you think. Once in a while I get annoyed about the fact that I have no real privacy, nowhere I can go and not be registered. I know that, somewhere, everything I do, think, and dream of is recorded. I just hope that nobody will use it against me. Ida Marguerite Meyer Walken. Dear reader, you need to review that last quote once more. Everything you think, do, and go, including your dreams. This isn't wild conjecture. This is the future we're building. Everything will be recorded and tracked. If you're anything like myself, we're either dead, locked away from the unthinking horde, suffering a battery of tests, and or breaking our backs in a labour camp. Universal basic income translates to the corporation, aka government, controls you in total. Now you're government property and dependent on your masters. Appanage rates such as soil and green. The sky's the limit. These topics are on the docket, and measures to manifest this future are in the works. Our complacency helps this effort succeed. I'm not one to promote campaign fear. Anyone who knows me understands this isn't how I operate. When it comes to basic needs and any semblance of freedom, the pace of my heart triples and I go to work. The only way we can turn this around is to band together and provide others with this content, and hope they make informed decisions. As terrifying as this may be, there's another project I need you to know about too. It's called the Embryonic Lifelong Program, which will track everything you do and think, track, map, mirror, and master. An early version of Skynet comes to mind. Side note, supposedly due to public outcry, the Embryonic Lifelong Program was cancelled, but the last time I checked I'm fairly sure you could still log into Facebook. Do you remember that projects are rebranded and they carry on unabated? Business model where the company owns it and the company openly owns you. You will have no freedom, no privacy, and no rights whatsoever. You will be a number through and through, openly labelled a commodity that works for the corporation. A disposable, replaceable commodity. Speak out against the corporation and they'll end your life and shuffle someone else into your communal living quarters. If they don't legally murder you when you book the system, another option may be that you'll be Getherized. In a nanosecond you'll lose access to your home, food stations, clothing, etc. I picture the vast underbellies of smart cities and the smart grid, where undesirables live off of tumour-ridden rodents, or they waste away in the street while people rate how ugly they are, or how quickly they die. If it wasn't clear, freedom and privacy are being rebranded. How many kids today do you know who aren't on social media? In many examples there's at least one still frame of their bedroom, one headshot anyone could screen print. It's terrifying. We are and have been engineered to accept a dystopic nightmare. Communism, ring any bells?
What the robot just read to you is part of Seminar 8, my least favorite fucking subject matter under the goddamn sun. And this is the stuff that most people should already understand, but they clearly don't, which is why we see things getting exponentially worse by the day. It's a fucking shit show and most people don't realize it, but what the fuck do I know? It's not like I mean well or I'm trying to help you pull your head out of your asshole. Have you heard Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum echoing things, sentiments along the lines of, you will own nothing and you will like it. You will be happy, things to that effect. Because if so, this just might be a goddamn social engineering agenda. This might just be propaganda that people are being spoon-fed. To do what? To normalize this garbage so that people buy into it. And they repeat it. And we're already to that point. And that should terrify you. I mean well, but people are not fucking using their brain when it comes to shit that fucking matters. And I can't stress that enough. And typically speaking, it's somebody you fucking know and you care about. And it's like beating your head against a fucking brick wall trying to get through to them. Because they will repeat the superficial shit instead of listening to somebody else that supposedly they also care about to, limiting degrees. It's fucking insane. Stuff like this does get under my skin and it does work me up. Especially when it comes to people. I mean, people you know, like, and love. People you care about. People you know deep down have a good heart. And yet, here's the rest of the screen videos. And she's still not thinking about it. And she's not going to think about it. And most people out there are on board with what she's fucking shopping around these days. Too many people is my point. And I've left things online numerous fucking times talking about mom and pop, etc., how we're being manipulated, and she doesn't pop in and watch those videos. She's one of those people who's part of my life and does not give a flying fuck about what I've been talking about all these years. Let's begin the day this way. I've known this gal most of my life, and she's been shopping around dog shit for years. And last night I saw, communist garbage, among other things. And I called her out. And that's the response. Because she's proud of this and she believes that it's something that it's not. You're shopping around absolute nonsense in place to subjugate the masses. Period. Yeah. What I'm talking about reflects reality in stark contrast to what you're promoting. Period. People fucking disgust me. Oops, there we go. That's a little better. Delete for me? I suppose so. Let's unsend that. Either way, it's fucking disgusting. You keep saying this has to do with your intelligence. Period. You're following a trend, comma. You've been manipulated, comma. You are repeating an official narrative. Period. Doesn't mean you can't change this fact. Period. But instead you're trying to justify your actions by throwing something at me. Period. Look into it, comma. You clearly bought into something. Period. You would know this if you looked into it. Period. Pretty goddamn simple. Period. Here's a quick shitty overview of what you're going to find online. Now, what I want you to appreciate is, and it's no different from what For the People, by the People, the Republic became. It's no different from this shit. But people will read things that will claim that it's different. And a lot of people will probably assume that it's different. They'll believe it. But who puts these narratives in place? Who reaffirms these things? Who does this? You and I? Or are we spoon-fed information? And people don't question this. They do not fucking question this. Right now, you got communism in the fucking programming. You have communism in terms of, and this is all over the fucking place, and Etsy is one of the best examples I've seen in terms of promoting memorabilia, propaganda in physical fucking form, so to speak, that you can collect and save, until everything hits the fan and is technically, communism. And then people can just take whatever the fuck they want, who knows, and it's all just a fucking free-for-all, and it's not a far cry from what the same kids are echoing in terms of anarchism. These are the answers. It's fucking retarded. Just the same. This is, like I said, it's a superficial Google search, and this is what most people fucking believe. It's what most people fucking believe. It bothers me. The gal in question, I mean, how should I put it? I place a lot of faith in people, and deep down I know better, because I've seen them in situations. I think about other poor choices that people I've known long term have made, and we all make poor choices, but some of them are ridiculously poor choices. In terms of just not reasoning things out. And I mean, this isn't a surprise, but it is very frustrating. It is very frustrating. The fact that you and I are being manipulated should also stand out to people, but it doesn't, because they're going along with the flow and they're repeating trends. It's insane. It's fucking insane. Yeah. I thought I'd rattled this off. It's shit. It's shit. I mean, my delivery and everything else. You'd have to consider what I'm driving at. You'd have to look shit up for yourself. And I'm not talking about just the superficial garbage that you're going to be spoon-fed. You could also consider, I mean, how many, quote-unquote societies have adopted communism, and how well did that go? What did it turn into? You don't see any of this being long-lasting. You don't see any of this benefiting people. You don't see this fucking working. Which is an entirely different ball of wax if you assume otherwise based on what I've said about fascism relating to fucking communism in a big fucking way. Because quite literally, anything that ends with ism is fucking fascist. It's a shade of fascism. All of these goddamn umbrella schemes that are imposed on society are in place to pave the way inevitably for fascism, because the goal is control and our masters tighten the noose, slowly but surely. It's insane. You could think of us here in the States. We aren't free, we are debt slaves. You and I we used to have even more anonymity, autonomy, etc., etc., etc. With introductions of things like this, more and more what you would consider, civil liberties and freedom and all that other stuff is taken away. It is slowly eroded. That's one of many reasons why I complain and why I'm saying what I'm saying today in terms of communism is a fucking agenda. It's a problem. And if people could think for themselves, they would reason this shit out. Now, the gal in question, I do think that she's educated in other ways. I do. But she's obviously, it's less than obvious for most of you probably too. She's chasing her tail and she's contributing to horse shit, which is why I spoke up. I know I run the risk of losing people in my life when I do this, but it's the right fucking thing to do because she is fucking off her rocker on this one. And it's disgusting. She also promotes, non-binary bullshit, none of which reflects reality, and she should know that one. She should fucking know that one out of the gates, because it doesn't fucking reflect reality. It's a flowery fucking narrative. But it's not unlike this, and she bought into both, which is quite fucking telling and absolutely deplorable. But as always, what the fuck do I know? As a less than gentle reminder, there's a difference between memorizing information and repeating it. Reading something superficially and saying, I'm educated, I'm knowledgeable, I'm intelligent, etc., etc. If you're not comparing and contrasting things, especially these days, because it's the age of disinformation, You're doing both of us a disservice, and most people are. I stress all the time that you and I are being dumbed down. Critical thinking skills have virtually gone out the fucking window, and the list goes on. People's attention spans are shit by design, not coincidence. And people can't fucking connect the dots. The simplest shit under the sun that I've complained about, and I've spoon-fed you guys, some of which I know resonates with you, otherwise you wouldn't come back. You wouldn't fucking come back if it didn't, because that would make no sense. That'd be insane. Maybe I'll digress. I was going to complain a little more about that, but that's all I'm doing on this note. And there's other things that I plan on working on today. I'm just wasting my fucking time doing this, and most people don't see these fucking videos. And or they don't fucking care about any of this. They're not going to look into any of this. And they are repeating to varying degrees these narratives of fucking propaganda that go nowhere, mean nothing, and are fuck all. Maybe I should say they go somewhere, but it has to do with our indentured servitude getting worse. Much, much worse. And that's why it's in the programming. That's why it's being echoed. And I'm not talking about mom and pop. I'm talking about the bastards who are pulling our strings. And it's not something that's secretive. It's public. It's available to you. You could look this shit up. But if you knock out a superficial Google search, or you do what I was complaining about earlier, is communism fascism? And Google's going to tell you, no, they're diametrically opposed. I'm reviewing the video. If you jump in and Google is a Democrat the same as a Republican, Google's going to tell you no, right? Would you agree? And yet they both fall under the same banner of America, which became a corporation in 1871, and most people don't know that. What they don't appreciate is that's under the banner of the District of Columbia. What they don't appreciate beyond that is the District of Columbia is the seat of the government. In other words, it is the District of Columbia, because the District of Columbia is the bottom of the trilateral city-states. And so it goes. But back to point. Is a Democrat the same as a Republican? Yeah, it's the same fucking shit. Because you and I are participating in a tug of war, so to speak. And most people are willing to participate. They're willing to be manipulated. They consent to being manipulated. It's fucking absurd. Why would you do that? If it's not going to benefit you or I, why would you fucking do that? And most people do. But why are these systems of belief disseminated, that's a bad way to put it, imposed on, presented to, what's another way, integrated into what you would consider quote-unquote society? I mean, it's a system, would you agree? How many people say fuck the system, right? But they don't take the time to appreciate little things, like if you were trying to build a house, or if you were pulling apart a washing machine, or if you were just trying to knock something out. If you were drawing, you're going to begin with a line. Would you agree? Probably a dot, then a line. Yeah? You got to build this stuff up. This is the same thing that our masters are doing. This shit doesn't happen overnight, which is why I constantly stress about, normalization being a fucking problem. And a lot of that was probably too flowery and or all over the place, so you guys probably don't understand what I'm saying. Because again, people can't connect the fucking dots, and they don't mean to. I know other people out there are fucking frustrated, and a lot of them are also repeating the fucking garbage to varying degrees. Instead of what I'm complaining about right now, they're running in the opposite direction, and these two things are, they work in tandem. It's also why this is being chopped around. Yeah. Assume these are spurious correlations. The more information you run through, the more you'll fucking see what I'm talking about if you use your brain. And you skim off all the shit that tells you, believe this, it's positive, it's a good thing, we're helping, everything's gonna be just A-okay. If something is too good to be true, it probably fucking is. I don't pretend to, and by no means do I know everything. I've stressed this before, I'm human. So there's going to be moments when I fuck shit up to varying degrees. I've been trying to do my best, and I do mean trying. I mean, I've been striving not to mislead you guys. So if I do ever speak of something and it doesn't hold water, I expect you to challenge me, because that's how things work. That's how we keep this whole thing humming, you know, and above board. Checks and balances. But again, I've been trying to, and I do mean trying, once again, doing my due diligence to not mislead you guys. I just got in, still thinking about what happened earlier. I mean, what happened is just what happens with most people. They repeat superficial shit. They don't consider the ramifications. They don't consider what they were spoon-fed in the propaganda, etc., etc., etc. And I was going to go, and I fucking hate this movie, and it's one of many examples in recent times. Ant-Man and the quantum, universe of adult fairy tales and garbage, which is in place to pave the way for a one-world religion. In that movie, there's a Zionist puppet, otherwise known as Michael Douglas. Keep in mind, he's only in films because of nepotism, thanks to Kirk Douglas, another Zionist puppet, because they're related, or they were. Kurt passed away last time I checked. Either way, in Ant-Man and fuck all, which is by Disney, and remember, the girl that I'm talking about, she bought into all that crap that Disney's been pushing. So to get somebody to think about these things is a Herculean task. I mean, there used to be an image back in college in a psychology building of two mighty hands trying to lift a river. And it's impossible. Even if you had giant hands, I mean, you'd have to be able to cup the river. That's the point. And it's just pouring through the fingers in the image that I'm thinking of. It's damn near impossible to get people who are in their teens even to pull their heads out of their ass and truly question what they've been raised with, what most people repeat and they assume holds water. Nudge, nudge, something, something. And the list goes on. But in Ant-Man and fuck all, the Zionist puppet Michael Douglas promotes communism. And that was in a recent Disney movie. After they, hijacked the Marvel universe and drug it through the fucking mud with the MCU. And no, I'm not bashing women. I'm bashing shit storytelling that promotes divisive fucking garbage. In case you're one of those other kids out there who assumes something. There are a lot of videos I've left online. You could watch them all if you took the time. Everything that's still public. And you could think about what I've been saying. But instead of that, you tune out because I'm not singing the same song and praise as a bunch of bargain bin kids who are quite literally working against you and I. And themselves, but they're too stupid to realize it. Most of the day I've been thinking about how that gal kept saying that, I was knocking her intelligence and her education and this, that, and the other thing. She didn't consider the fact that she knows me. She knows what I've been up to long-term online. I mean, fairly recently, somebody else that she knows, that she introduced to me, because I write books, and they both read them and apparently liked them. This other person was following my main account too and speaking about absolute nonsense. You might be able to gather what kind of nonsense, because of she's a nurse. So she repeats that shit verbatim. And we went back and forth throughout all the bullshit. Fairly recently, the other person connected to this gal posted polarizing garbage when men and women were being pitted against each other, and she jumped on that, and she was leaving that shit online, misleading people. So I called bullshit, and she blocked me. She didn't respond, she just blocked me, because she didn't want to have to think about what I had to say. And I'm waiting for this gal that I've known a very long time to do the same thing. And it's fine if she does. I'm looking for people who can use their fucking brain. The problem is, most people can't. And the problem is, things are getting worse. That's what we see track. The problem is, most people are not going to pull their heads out of their ass and do the right fucking thing. That's exactly why things are bad, why they've always been bad. You and I have always been slaves. I mean, our forefathers, etc., were fucking slaves. Oh, am I supposed to say our foremothers or our four persons? Bunch of fucking retards. Just in case other people out there had reactions. It's insane. It's fucking insane. And if you truly took the time to dip into the information and compare and contrast things, you would see that what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it is important. And it does lead somewhere. And it paints a clear picture that what most people are shopping around is absolute fucking nonsense. It should also just reaffirm again, this gal has not taken the time to go through any of the things online where I teach people shit. Superficially, she'll jump into the account on my main Instagram sometimes, and she'll watch a few things sometimes, but it's also because I barked at her about a year and a half ago. Because she hasn't been doing any of that, and she is promoting propaganda, and most of the time I don't fucking call bullshit on that end. She posted a bunch of it back to back. And she does have a lot, not a hell of a lot of people following her, but she knows people. I mean, don't we all? Either way, that's a bad way to put it, but just the same. What the fuck is wrong with people? And it's because complacently, you and I reaffirm this shit. We turn a blind eye. Which promotes this shit. It's insane. No, on that note, I just remembered I dodged dog shit when I was skating home, and I probably should check my boots. When you get some kids sitting around in a smoking circle, talking about communism in theory, people who are probably horrible at playing fucking chess, there's a good likelihood, it is likely that some of them are going to probably repeat this shit as if it was the bee's knees. Free of any other fucking thought. Same idea applies to the Republic. For the people, by the people, all of that sounded really fucking good. But what happened to the Republic? Did that go so well? A lot of people haven't figured that much out. The same applies to what's taking place in terms and being dressed up as quote-unquote communism or socialism. And those two things are the same thing. Just like they're the same thing as fucking fascism. They really are, but you'd have to think about it. It's a means of control. Another way to put this, let's say we started talking about, the Islamic faith, the Christian faith. You could even slap in ridiculous polarizing Satanism, all of these things, all of these different systems. The goal is control. Those are all social what? Can some of you answer this? All religion is social control. So what do you think a mode of quote-unquote government is? I mean, some of you know the etymology behind government, and technically it's all corporations. That's not about to change anytime soon, because those are also incremental steps towards what we're moving into, the next phase. And it's not something that benefits you and I. In case you don't know, and you look into government, it has to do with controlling the mind, the minds of the masses. Is what people superficially call the government talking about communism in a favorable light? They are. Is it promoted in the fucking propaganda, the programming? Yes, it is. And are there numerous propaganda campaigns associated with this? Yes, there are. I'm talking about the patches and the stickers and the groups that have been funded by Rockefeller money. Yeah, and at the core of these groups, what do they promote? The core beliefs behind quote-unquote communism. All the while, if these kids were simply paying attention, and I mean connecting the fucking dots, the quote-unquote government, and like I said, the World Economic Forum, and a number of these fucking assholes out there. And this information's available to you, mind you. A lot of you, you and I lived through the moments when these things were spoon-fed to the masses. And most people tuned out. They didn't listen to what was being said and consider why it was being said. Not unlike me chiming in today. And having that gal that I care about just ignore what I said. But a superficial Google search. And are you saying I'm not intelligent? No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying you need to consider this shit and look into it because you're missing the boat. There are more pieces at play at the moment than a superficial concept in a bubble. Communism in theory, and I used to joke around about this, Sure, yeah, it might work in theory. If you look at the track record of anybody who has ever adopted it, it has failed miserably repeatedly. And once again, it's being adopted, it's being promoted, and people are latching onto it, which makes no fucking sense! It defies logic. It defies logic. The best part is other people I've challenged will do the same thing. Claim that they're intelligent, claim that they're this, claim that they're educated. Things along those lines out of the gate. Not verbatim, but in different ways, because everyone's different. And yet, they're not willing to look into these things. Some of the crude breadcrumbs that, I'm throwing out there, but it's up to you to fucking do something with them. I think I complained in one of these clips, I shouldn't have to think for you. I shouldn't have to come to your doorstep, knock on the door, and say, you're fucking misleading people and doing the wrong fucking thing. What the fuck's wrong with you? Let alone have you bark back. There's a reason I showed up and I took the time to do the right fucking thing. And that is rarely acknowledged. Rarely. Very rarely. And even still, a lot of people still turn back and will freak out. They'll still call on the lowest aspect of their chakras. They'll still band together with the fucking mob of morons. And they'll just cut me out. Business as usual. Let's promote the propaganda. Again, do we see things getting better or do we see things getting worse? Because this is one example of ridiculous, it's retarded shit is what it is. It makes no fucking sense if you truly think about it. But most people don't.
Pavlov's duck, behaviorism in control of society. BBC documentary, The Centre of Self. Society is designed much in the same way as Common Core logic. And most of you are too hopelessly brain dead to realise how intelligent and backwards it is. If it wasn't painfully obvious, repeating what you've been told to think is no different from a dog ringing a bell and getting a treat. Only in your case your peers smile and reaffirm that you did just as they will, and the social feedback loop of unfounded nonsense carries on. Good job. Bad job. Facebook, like. Facebook, dislike. Critical thinking be damned. You and I were and are repeatedly conditioned to behave appropriately. In time, this will fall under Google values. In elementary, if you sit through nearly a calendar cycle's worth of tests about history before you're allowed to live out your childhood for the matter of 3 months, maybe you'll be rewarded with an end-of-the-year pizza party, rewarded with food incentives aka token rewards, and shamed by controlling the environment. Gold stars and dunce caps of old aka social shaming. It's quote-unquote classical conditioning, and you need to understand it so that you can recognise it. As I often say, without the outline you can't think in terms of the blueprint. Thus you become someone's ass puppet. If I curse more than usual, it's because the subject matter in Seminar 8 gets me fired up. If you use the brain between your ears, it ought to have a similar effect. We need to be fired up about the many ways our day-to-day has been controlled because things haven't changed in nearly 5,000 years. Skinner kept his kid in a box for a year. 1932, Brave New World was written. 1958, Brave New World was revisited. Aldous Huxley, author of the aforementioned book, also died the same day JFK was assassinated. I'll list the contents of Brave New World. Contents. I, overpopulation. 2, quantity, quality, morality. 3, over-organisation. 4, propaganda in a democratic society. V, propaganda under a dictatorship. 6, the arts of selling. 7, brainwashing. 8, chemical persuasion. X, hypopedia aka sleep learning. 11, education for freedom. 12, what can be done. 1962, Huxley gave a speech at Berkeley on the following information. Looked it up. Abstract thought and critical analysis. Oh no, as a child you're programmed to act just like the children in classrooms, just like you're across the realm. Programmed to obey the state, which in time will become obeying the cryptocracy. There's a science to programming, which our masters seek to perfect, repetition, suppression, and rationalization. In time I'll tell you about a DARPA project that ought to terrify you. Side note, dear reader, seriously give it some thought. Once you've heard the same thing, and or seen it more times than you can count, you begin to accept it. Whether that's consciously or subconsciously, it becomes part of what you're aware of, thereby part of your programming. Be honest with yourself and think about something you recall hearing that turned out to be nonsense, but it was repeated by the news, our masters, and in time the public sphere. After World War II, keep in mind 100 years after the Communist Manifesto was written, George F. Kennan aka Mr. X aka George Kennan created the policy of containment which became the US foreign policy. To better understand this, the Berlin Wall was erected under the policy of containment. Also know that George Kennan's uncle implemented communism in Russia. The Origin of English Socialism by Edward R. Pease. 1883. The Fabian Society Subverting Socialism Through Social Engineering. 1887. A document from the Fabian Society. A few notable members of the Fabian Society include George Bernard Shaw, the playwright, H. G. Wells, known eugenicist and science fiction author. The goal of the Fabian Society is the extinction of private property, which means you're forced to rent everything you need on this rock. Sound familiar? In the book titled History of the Fabian Society, The Origin of English Socialism by Edward R. Pease, it states, taxed for use of the earth. The logos of the Fabian Society are a wolf in sheep's clothing, and the turtle, referring to the turtle and the hare. Moreover, the fact that the Fabian Society are playing the long game. Keywords: eugenicist, eugenicist, the Fabian Society, The Impact of Science on Society, by Lord Bertrand Russell. Lord Bertrand Russell, known eugenicist, Are You Sensing a Theme? And former president of the Royal Society, wrote a book titled The Impact of Science on Society. 1951. On page 26 of the aforementioned book, Lord Bertrand proposed an ultimatum, based on advancing technologies of course, either return to barbarism or face extinction, but he did provide another convenient option. Or we could create a world government aka world empire. Keywords: the Carbonara movement, Benito Amilcar Andrea Mussolini. Freikorps was renamed the National Socialist German Working Party. Remember this expression, by the state, for the state. Continuing a line of thought from Seminar 6, early communists referred to themselves as social democrats. Socialism is fascism, which is also no different than being a Nazi. Specifically, German and Italian fascism are rooted in communism. Socialist became a taboo term, and so sometime after 1948 it was replaced with quote-unquote communist. Fascism is simply communism, however. Some of the key details have been rearranged to appear as an entirely different animal. As we see here in the United States, your children are owned by the state once you sign a birth certificate. If you were to buy a house, you continue to rent it by paying land taxes, because such as all things you assume you own, you're in truth leasing them from the state. If it wasn't clear, this is communism. Italian leader Benito Amilcar Andrea Mussolini helmed fascism. In fact, many believe he created what our masters use against us today. Side note: if that sounds outlandish, look up the symbol of fascism. Next, look up what stands to the right and left of the podium in the House of Congress. 1800 to 1831. The Carbonari movement was the second generation of the Illuminati. Make no mistake, Mussolini influenced what you consider America today, despite how history has painted Mussolini. Mussolini formed the quote-unquote black shirts. The Thule Society is said to be connected to the Illuminati, however, the threads simply don't connect. Hitler stated in his second book that he was a socialist aka communist, and he highlighted that the red field behind the swastika reflected this. 1919. Hitler may be seen standing alongside the Commissars of the Bavarian Soviet Republic in a photograph. Look it up. Hitler was recruited into a German volunteer unit known as the Freikorps. In time, he became an instructor and later an infiltrator. Before long, the Freikorps was renamed the National Socialist German Working Party, which was funded by an unnamed source. To connect the dots, understand that this group was founded by the Illuminati in Bavaria. Meanwhile, two street gangs developed in Germany, the Nazi and the Communists. After much hullabaloo, the Nazi won and many of the Communists took up brown shirts to join them. They became known as brown on the outside and red on the inside. Keep in mind, in the public sphere we are told that the Illuminati are said to have two goals, the elimination of GD and the New World Order.
What you hear the robot read is something that I took time to write. Part of the reason I took time to write it has to do with something that might lose you for a second. Back in 2015, things were exceptionally dark and I had a very foreboding feeling. There was a video that was circulated on the internet, and if I heard about it today and had not seen it, I would assume that people were off their fucking rocker. The Queen of England jumped on the television and said, "Enjoy your last Christmas." And now it doesn't exist because it's digital media, or pardon me, content. Because it was rebranded, which is part of our master's mode of operations. So what I'm getting at is there are so many goddamn things under the sun that I took time and energy and squirreled away days when I had them to catalog for you guys. Because the masses aren't fucking paying attention, and things that are left in a digital format can be deleted, removed, squirreled away, and hidden on a fucking black server. And you and I don't have access to them. Numerous things on the internet fall into this category. Another tactic that's being used these days is you can find these things, but it's only if you scroll for fucking days. And I shit you not, I'm talking about long term, and you can't look away. You could probably write an algorithm, and you could probably use a robot to do this. But that's not how things should be, which means information is technically under attack, and you and I are being manipulated. But that should be obvious, but it's less than obvious, because you don't hear people talk about half the shit that I usually talk about on the goddamn DARPA internets, specifically on free social media, connected to 5G, home networks, which have been infiltrated with AI, and the list goes on. Because you and I are being manipulated. So the point being, what I did read, or what I did write technically, and I had the robot read to you in this case, I took the time to do so because these things are not available to us in most cases. Some of these you can still find. You could probably verify some of those quotes having to do with, I think that was partially the World Economic Forum, and or I think it's also in the transcripts of the Davos panel. One of those comes out every year, by the way. And the recent one had to do with shutting things down in terms of people like myself trying to get through to fucking retards. People who choose to be a retard. It's a temporary system, which means you can pull your head out of your ass if you choose to. But most people don't. Instead, they pat each other on the ass and they walk in fucking lockstep. By the by, in terms of the video having to do with the Queen from 2015, I want you to think about the fact that technology is rolled out to the masses well after our masters have had their day with it. I want you to think about AI videos. I want you to think about NIVIDIA, I believe is how it's worded, software. It's since splintered off, and it has numerous names now and numerous applications. If you look at the Xbox 360 game Deadpool, it was used in the game. These are things that could create false speech, could create false images, things along those lines, which were precursors to what we see today with AI videos. My point being, what I saw and what doesn't exist anymore is also in place to pave the way for a one-world religion having to do with the multiverse of adult fairy tale horseshit and simulation theory. Oh, but it was just a Mandela effect. It never existed. And or it was a social experiment where it was spoon-fed to people here on the goddamn internet, and I did see it. I didn't think to pinch it at the time because I didn't think these things would fucking disappear this soon. But I was wrong. The masters are conducting a war against the masses, and most people have their heads so far up their fucking ass, they're quite literally supporting the very people subjugating us. I say this a lot. There's a reason why in that 1999 film, The Matrix, you were told anybody can be a fucking agent. What did you do this last weekend? I urge you to try to use Google to find the clip. It used to be available to the masses. Now what you're going to find, typically speaking, are other segments of lectures, not what you're looking for, even though I just used the words that should have popped up. Case in point, the video on the top is not what you're looking for. It's not what I'm looking for. It's not him actually saying what he did say. So why would that be at the top of the stack? A lot of these other videos are people echoing what he said. In other words, if you don't have access to it anymore, it could be said that he never said it. And that people just misremembered what happened. However, I mean, how many people did see it, and he has said it, and he did say it, and it's a fucking fact. But this is how these games are played. I'll try another one.
By 2030,
Nope.
you will own nothing and you'll be
The
happy.
last thing I need is that guy talking to us. Pretty shiesty, though. But how many of you give a flying fuck? How many of you are concerned with things like this? I mean, things like this wouldn't exist. It's a rhetorical question as well. If you and I were surrounded by adults who are willing to do the right fucking thing. Here are some less than honorable superficial Google searches. So, as it reads, in the 1840s, German philosopher and sociologist Karl Marx, who was living in England after fleeing the authorities in Prussia, where he was considered a political threat, began publishing books in which he outlined his theories for a variety of communism, now known as Marxism. And for a second I was going to outline where we're going with this, but you'll see what I'm getting at. Here I asked, was Karl Marx a Jesuit? No, Karl Marx was not a Jesuit, according to AI, but he did attend a Jesuit high school in Trier, Germany from 1830 to 1835. Okay? Maybe not practicing, but he participated. So in other words, was Karl Marx Jewish? Part of the, Judaism? Because if so, that's another red fucking flag. Another example would be the Big Bang, which is dog shit. Absolute pseudoscience, but it was spoon-fed to people and most people believe it and repeat it. Back to point. Karl Marx was educated at home until he was 12, and then attended the Jesuit high school in Trier, which was then known as Friedrich Wilhelm Gymnasium. Marx's father was a lawyer who converted to Lutheranism in 1816, which may have been to avoid the laws that prevented Jews from entering high society. So that likely means that Karl Marx had Jewish blood. We'll come back to that at the very end of this slideshow. What did I say here? I said, wait, what did I ask here? Karl Marx, Greek roots. This has to do with fascism, by the way. Nudge, nudge, something, something, because that's what we're talking about. Here, I'll just read it. Karl Marx's theories about classical antiquity were influenced by Greek philosophers, including, and you can read those names because I'll butcher them, but they were Greek philosophers. Marx's studies of ancient Greek and Roman, keep in mind those two are synonymous, mythology and history of art at the University of Bonn helped shape his ideas. Do take that in. Marx believed that the classical city was one of the social formations that led to the emergence of class society. Slave societies. Marx believed that classical Greece and Rome were slave societies. They are, and what we're living through today is modeled after them. Food for thought. In other words, we haven't bucked that system, so anything that is stirred in the pot within this system is still part of that fucking system. Food for thought. What else do we got here? Greece. Why would I highlight that? Same screenshot. Says, what are the roots of fascism? Background and 19th century roots. Early influences that shape the ideology of fascism have been dated back to ancient Greece. The political culture of ancient Greece, and specifically the ancient Greek city-state of Sparta under whoever the fuck, with its emphasis on militarism and racial purity. Let's read that again, shall we? the political culture of ancient Greece and specifically the ancient Greek city of Sparta under, you fill in the blank, with its emphasis on militarism and racial purity, were admired by the Nazis. Eugenics, ring any bells? Nudge, nudge, something, something? Keep in mind, in case you've ever said evolution or you know about Darwin, he's one of the many examples that I've thrown out numerous times because Darwin stole his working concepts from a dying man in a tent, and evolution wasn't one of them. But Darwin did promote eugenics, as did numerous people in his fucking family. And a lot of pseudo-intellectual wet farts out there will whine at me about Germany, but they don't realize that. So when you think about people who talk about transhumanism, cross-dressing not being a gender or a race of people, because that's not what reflects reality, well, that is aligned with what people would think of as evolution. And a lot of them will actually say as much. Isn't that highly ironic? Back to point. Who designed the symbol of, which one's this? This is the hammer and the sickle. So this is what people consider communism, which, as you should well know by this point, is socialism, because that's where it came from. And it had to be rebranded because it was shit. Yeah? So take this with a grain of salt, just the same. Inception. In 1918, you can fill in the name, proposed a hammer and sickle symbol as a decoration for the May Day. And keep in mind, that has to do with what? Some of you guys should know. The maypole ceremony and things along those lines, which our masters still pay quite a bit of reverence to across the fucking board, because they understand how reality works, and you and I are not supposed to. Just a reminder, the year is 2024 still. It doesn't turn into 2025 until March 21st. And the May Day jazz factors into what I'm talking about, not what people celebrate. So I said May Day celebrations in the whatever district of Moscow. It originally featured a sword, but Lenin strongly objected, disliking the military, I can't say it. Help me out, think for me, connotations. I want you to think about that sword, and I want you to parallel it with this. Who designed the fasci? The symbol of fascism. An Etruscan, I don't know if I said that right, origin. Furthermore, is supported by ancient literary evidence. The poet, whoever the fuck, who flourished in the late 1st century AD, posited that Rome adopted many of its emblems of office, viz. The fasces, the curl chair, and the toga practisact. I can't say it right. Specifically from you-know-what. And you should be familiar with both of these. You've probably seen this garbage, and you've probably seen this garbage. And if you listen to this entire goddamn video, you heard what they had to say about the Nazi swastika. Yeah? And how it's connected to this, based on the color scheme, as admitted by who? Adolf Hitler. So here's the slide that I said we'd get to at the end. The son of Jewish parents, Marx was baptized at the age of 6. While he had no Jewish education and embraced I can't say it now. You know what I'm talking about. No God, despite the fact that you and I exist, and God is a process, it's a verb, it's not a noun. And it does exist, otherwise you and I wouldn't. Keep in mind, I'm not a Bible thumper or any of those other things. What I talk about reflects reality, based on replicable, evidence-based research. In other words, what science should have stood for. And most of you probably tuned out, and or what I just said went over your head. You systematically rejected it based on your programming. Based on the programming. Back to point. He continues to be identified as a Jew, and his Jewish ancestry influenced his thinking. Marx's writings about Jews and Judaism, which identify Judaism with capitalism, are nearly all hostile. And so, if you think in terms of controlled opposition assets or people who are in somebody else's pocket, this is definitely in that wheelhouse of thinking. In terms of how people operate who have been compromised. Make of that what you will, but just the same, this was well financed, this was well circulated, and this guy had a position of power. This guy had a soapbox to stand on. That doesn't usually happen. And if it was truly grassroots, you know, wholesome, this, that, and the other thing, well, just think about it. That's the point of this entire video, is to use the brain between your fucking ears, because that's why it's there. Quit fucking shit up for me and you and everybody else. This hasn't been easy doing the right thing all these years, but it's the right thing to do. So anyone and everyone who has doubted me, go fuck yourself. I haven't let myself watch, it's called Conspiracy Theory, which is social engineering jargon drummed up to defame anybody who spoke out against the Warren Commission. But I'm talking about the movie from, I think it was 1997, starring two Zionist puppets in particular, Julia Roberts and Mel Gibson. Keep in mind, Mel Gibson hung out with Peter Nygard, known pedophile, who is currently incarcerated for touching kids. What do I know? But if you zoom in, I mean, this movie's full of fucking propaganda to reaffirm propaganda. This is what the entire movie is centered around. Space propaganda. Fucking dog shit. The truth about UFOs. The space shuttle's seismic secret. And then you got Oliver Stone garbage. Who fucking cares? But then what do you see again? Alien faces on Mars. And what do you see at the very bottom to make sure you know what we're talking about? What they won't tell us about the UFOs. None of that shit exists. I mean, in terms of UFOs, you might see man-made craft and man-made lights and fill in the fucking blank. And I've complained about this before. So if you want more of the details, watch the fucking videos in the accounts. Simple as that. Either way, you and I are being manipulated. Most people are dumb. They don't see it for what it is. This is a blink and you'll miss it moment. And this is very telling. This is also subliminal imagery. I'm going to show you one of many morons you'll find on the DARPA internet. I interacted with this guy. He deleted one or two of my comments, and then the other ones he just clicked like on. Fucking moron.
You were warned. You were told. You were begged not to wake up Gen X. Well, congratulations. We're awake now.
Do remember, English is the phonetic reversal of Hebrew, and if you reverse wake up, it means fuck you, because our masters are laughing at us from tall buildings. Most people out there operate like that guy, because that's what they were spoon-fed. Meanwhile, we're using the DARPA internet, we're using free social media, these are all red flags, our masters are tracking all of this shit, and we're profiling ourselves. We're training the AI, our masters are testing our reaction times, our masters are dumbing us down, and most of you assume that you don't have masters, which is even better. Because you and I are surrounded by morons, who are more interested in things like this than what I just told you. But what the fuck do I know? Let's see here. First and foremost, I like this Matt Parker guy. He seems like a good egg. He does. He's talking about the Parker Magic Square, which isn't a magic square. It's an absolute waste of fucking time, but he does sell t-shirts. Which is why I imagine he mentioned it, for namesake. He just knocked out, this is Number File again. Number File produces superficial shit. They never show you answers to reality. None of it's on the surface. It's not that deep either. Either way, back to point. A while back, I asked a test question. Nobody could fucking answer it because people don't know these things. I'm also censored, so I didn't have a huge sample population, pour through. You never know. Somebody might be able to fucking figure it out. I also pointed out, in the video where I ask a test question, there's a book by W.S. Andrews. It's titled Magic Squares and Cubes. And on the cover of that book, what you see is not a magic square. It's incorrect. So I'm leaving this on here. And that's if people see it. Oh, look, I have to click see more. Because that was also a very long comment or statement in this case. So I said, to date, I've never met someone who to date, I've never met someone who understands what a magic square truly is. Eventually, I'll probably publish what I'm alluding to in a book. But if any of you trust fund kids out there want to pay me, and I do mean this, a couple million dollars, maybe I'll sell you the answer. This is just one answer I'm sitting on in a sea of idiots. This is one thing that people do not get, they do not understand, and I can explain to you. And it's a big answer. Best of all, if one kid on the fucking internet answered the test question, I recorded a video that is a very long video. It's got to be probably 1 or 2 hours long. I think I'd have to break it up, and I still have the video. Where I show you more answers and I show you why this works and how it works and what it's related to and how it syncs to fucking reality. But I never posted or published it to, the public sphere because you and I are surrounded by people who do not fucking care. And or they can't answer a question. What do I mean by that? If you can't Google it, you can't repeat it. And you sure as shit can't use the brain between your ears to root something out. And I am intentionally being condescending because you could change that fact. But most people aren't willing to. Instead, they'll get their feelings hurt and cry themselves to sleep. What the fuck do I know? Oh, and I was going to show you the video, but you can look up number file and figure it out for yourself. Just you remember, if you guys are on your best behavior, I'll take you to the zoo.
Hey, Rob.
What?
Hey, she's retarded.
She ain't retarded, she's shy,
I'll tell you what to do. Take her to the zoo. I hear retards like the zoo.
Hey, this bum gotta say that.
All right, back it up, buddy.
I'm calling you a bum.
What are we doing here at the zoo?
It's been a bucket of fucking laughs. Best of luck.